to make it. So yeah, just keep that in mind, and we'll have that there for future reference. Quick overview. A couple things we want to make sure that we cover. For new folks who are working on adaptive course projects with us, understanding what the curating SME or CSME role is at the American Women's College. There's going to be a lot of new vocabulary that we're throwing at you. Not throwing at you, but presenting in really helpful ways. And so what does that vocabulary look like, and what are the tools and resources that you'll be using and that are relevant to the role? And also just know we should be able to cover and make sure that you understand what to expect with the rest of the training. A number of you, it looks like, have already logged into the CSME training, but we just want to give a quick overview of what that's going to look like. And then identify project team resources. So, you know, kind of as the training goes on, you'll be meeting with your project team. And so we just want to make sure that we have things in order there, that you know who to reach out to and who you can talk to. So before we get really into it, I just wanted to see if we can, and if we have a number of people on here, we might need to, you know, make sure we keep it super quick, but I want to keep make sure we have an opportunity to introduce ourselves. I've already said my name is Chris, and I'm a course builder at the American Women's College. I've been here for about a year and a half, actually, up to now. And I've worked with a number of projects just like what you'll be working on. As a course builder, it's a lot of this instructional design work, facilitating trainings like this, and then building out taking the resources that you'll be providing for us and then putting that into our adaptive platform. So if other folks on the CV team are here and want to introduce themselves quick, that would be great. You can unmute yourselves and yeah, give us a shout. You don't all have to jump at once.
I'll go first. Hopefully it works. Can you hear me?
Yes. Who is this?
This is Katie Kabaska. I'm calling from Palmer, Mass. I am typically a Mac user. And one thing I hope to get from this webinar is kind of an overview of what our work will entail.
Awesome. Thank you.
This is Becky. I'm another one of the course builders. I've done contract work in adaptive learning for about the last year and just started as a full-time course builder a couple weeks ago, so I'm excited to work with you guys.
Hey everybody, my name is Jeremy Anderson. I am the Deputy Chief of Academic and Administrative Technology. So I oversee our data team, our analytics team, our course building team, and online support.
Jeremy's super busy. I'm Michael. I'm the same thing as Becky. I've been here just over 3 years at the American Women's College. I'm calling from the internet, and I look forward to helping you guys through this exciting adaptive process. Is Diane here?
You called me out, Michael. I was just going to sit and observe. Hi, everyone. My name is Diane Reinhardt. I am the Assistant Director of Technology Services here at Bay Path, and I am actually here to hear what questions you have, because your role is so very important to creating the content that goes into the adaptive courses. And I deal with our students and our faculty who are experiencing some of this content. So I really want to make sure you understand how integral you are to the process. And down the road, you know, your material will directly be in front of these students. And so I just want you to understand how important that is. And we're here to support you along the way. So thank you for being here.
Other folks, other SMEs who are on the call that'd like to speak, feel free to do so.
Hi, this is Paula Chenoweth. I'm calling from Northern California. I use Windows, and like others, I want to leave this with a better understanding of the Bay Path process for course builds.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us. It looks like a few people are adding their introductions to, or adding their welcome and a little bit about themselves into the chat. So folks can definitely do that. Yeah, if there's anyone else that is eager to give a shout out, please do so. I wouldn't want to get too bogged down in that if we have a couple other things to get to. But yeah, anyone else want to jump on?
Hi, everyone. This is CC Doyle calling from Minnesota. Looking forward to learning more about this process. Nice to meet everyone.
Hello, everyone. I'm Tashia Levergrand calling from Connecticut. Looking forward to meeting everyone.
It's like a very young attendant.
Yeah, it sounds like a small child. Feel free to introduce yourself, small child.
Sorry, that was my daughter.
No, that's okay. Oh, Marina's joining us. Hi, Marina. Marina is an existing SME, and she's done a lot with us in the past. And yeah, she has her info in the chat as well. And yeah, we'll be hoping to get your perspective, Marina, a little bit later. Definitely, new folks, feel free to, or hopefully we have an opportunity to talk with Marina a little bit about her perspective, and hopefully have a chance to get to some feedback and advice that other folks on the course building team might have. This will be just the first of many opportunities for conversations like that. So yeah, I think. Sorry if we're don't want to get too far behind. So I think I'm going to jump ahead, and folks in the training, you have an opportunity to introduce yourself in a little bit more detail through the introductions page that we have set up in the training through the course module view. So if you haven't already, definitely jump into that and add a little bit of an introduction for yourself. So you can get to know who you're going to be working through this training with and who's on your team. But yeah, I'm going to jump ahead to provide a little bit of context. So we're talking about adaptive learning and what your role is as a curating SME for us. In a nutshell, adaptive is a learning experience that's really data-driven and relies on performance and interaction from our end users, from our students, to adapt or adjust the level of difficulty and the type of experience that is presented to our students in this format. And so where BayPath really goes with this, we branded our adaptive learning platform as Knowledge Path, and the adaptive learning experience, in short, is one part of an overall online course experience. And there are still discussions, and there are still summative assessments, so your essays and your presentations and things like that. But Knowledge Path is really trying to be, in many of our courses, that how do we cover those fundamentals for students and get the basics down and use that lower level knowledge to then build into higher level assessments. And so as we've talked about, our CSMEs folks, many of our folks on this call, we'll be working on these projects to develop quiz questions that are tied to specific topics within a subject area, and develop and curate or create content that the course building team will then put into the actual adaptive experience. So we use the materials that you subject matter experts provide us, and we plug that into the system. And we'll have a chance to jump into or get a little bit of feedback and take a step back, because this will be important vocab, but it's a heavy slide. But we'll definitely have a chance to ask some questions after this slide, and then after I get a chance to unpack it a little bit by showing you all of what we're talking about here. But in short, there are a number of people and resources that essentially are what make a project go from just what the subject area is to a fully developed product that gets delivered to our students. So we have our program directors. Those are the folks who have worked with you to hire you and onboard you, and in many cases they'll be your go-to person for issues of content, project management, lots of other things. So they'll be a very important person for you to keep in mind and make sure that you have them at the ready to contact if you need. We also have on a project team for a given course, a mapping SME or an MSME who is developing the map. That's their major deliverable, but they use something called a course or a competency matrix to, in essence, align course competencies. That's something that our courses have built into them. And then they're often developing learning objectives, tying those two together, and then building out a series of knowledge path or adaptive assignments that then align back to those learning objectives, which go align back to the course competencies. So we're very much trying to follow a backwards design principle for folks who might be familiar with that term. So that's what the matrix is in essence really about. We use the course learning map afterwards, after we have that matrix filled out, to visualize what the individual concepts that are required for a particular course experience, to visualize the connections across the course and across the course learning experience. And so you'll have an activity, which is an individual bubble on a course learning map. And that's essentially just a small, discrete mini lesson that is presented to the students, and that's where they get presented their learning material. And then where our curating SMEs come into the fold is through the use of our content and question template. That's where CSMEs will input the questions, the quiz questions, and the learning material that are tied to this a particular activity that is part of this larger course map. And that sounds like a lot. I feel like I'm, talking a lot. So I'll take a second. Because I'd like to give you guys some visuals to sort of walk you through this a little bit. And this will be relevant to our first discussion assignment in the training for folks going through the training, is asking you to do what I'm going to show you, or most of what I'm going to show you. So just give me a second and I should be able to visualize some of this for you. We'll start up here, and I'll go from scratch. So the first thing we're going to want to do is navigate to Google Drive. So essentially what I'm going to do is walk you through where to find your course map and the course matrix, identify an activity, and then use that to begin developing your questions. And then in module 2 of this training, we'll start to work with this template to input some actual content. Let me take a step back for a second. So the sample that I'll use for this call is from 3:15. Let me see, I think it was down here. Okay, so you can, if folks hopefully have a little bit of experience with Google Drive. If not, that's totally fine. It's Google, so it should be easy to use and navigate. But when you come into Drive, you need to make sure that you see Bay Path University, and if you have a photo of yourself, but you should see yourself logged in through your Bay Path email. Your project folders will be in your should be within your shared with you. You can add them to your Drive from here. And I would be happy to walk anyone who's having trouble with that, walk through that with them. But you can also search for it up here. So if you're looking for, in my case, 3:15, you can search for it up here. But we found it, and your project folder should all have a name similar like this, but obviously with the course project changed. So if we click into that, you should see a number of subfolders labeled assignment 1 through 6. And in essence, that's where your templates that you'll be working with will go. So as you complete them, you can upload them back into Drive very easily according to according to which assignment it goes into. So if we reflect back on the my slide that I had just up now, one of the first things was the course competency matrix. And you should see it, it should be labeled, it's a copy, but just a course competency matrix, and then the name of the course that you're assigned to or that you're working on developing. And when you come into it, it should already be filled out. There'll be lots of, it's a very busy document, but you'll remember course competencies are in this left quadrant over here. Those will be provided. All of this will be filled out. The important thing for folks to keep in mind is that these grayed out rows right here, that's and also with bolded text, will be the names of the assignments that you'll be working on. And so in essence, if we think about an assignment, that's a collection of activities. So all of these phrases and different things correspond to this assignment here. So we want to make sure, you know, basically this is telling me that we're going to cover all of these things within this assignment up here. And so you'll see there's all six assignments. Typically, the way that works for us is one assignment per week or per module for our students. So we have a rough understanding. These X's indicate where the alignment is back to our learning objectives and then back up to our course competencies. So this presents all of the information in a different way than our map will, and I'll show you that in a second. And this matrix might not be as useful for you, but it contains a lot of the same information that our course learning map will. So just keep that in mind, that this is also a place to go to get some context that's relevant to you about your course and the types of topics that you'll be working on. So where we find our course learning map is in a document called our project plan. For the most part, some of you, they might be screenshots or images of a course learning map. If you're not finding something in a project plan, definitely just reach out to your course builder and especially your program director, because they'll ultimately need to be the ones that give you the access to this document and to the course learning map itself. So, and if we scroll down a little bit here, there's a lot of context here, and this is a similar document to what you the project management tool that you'll use. But there's a lot of information here that gives context for the course. But the important piece to look at is linked to the bubble map here. So we'll open that, and it should hopefully bring us to the map. And we use a tool called Bubble, and it's worked fairly well for a number of our mapping SMEs and a number of our course developments. So you could zoom in and you can start to see if we jump back to the course competency matrix, assignment 3, fighting for the American dream. Fighting for the American dream, I think this is flowing down. So this is 2, this will be 3. And then these are the concepts that are essentially going to be covered in what's going to drive the learning experience for our students. And this visualization here is just to show that in this adaptive experience, students need to know about this topic before they move on to these other topics. And I would ignore that. That's a bit of a mistake. But essentially, you need to know all of this stuff over here before you move on to these other topics. And with regard to these topics, it doesn't really matter so much which order you know them in. So to tie this back to our discussion board post for this first module in this training, you all need to, folk going through the training, need to walk through, go to their project folder, find their bubble map, find their course learning map, and then identify a topic. So one of these, a concept, an activity is what we call them in this bubble map format. You can call it a bubble, but essentially you need to identify what is going to be one knowledge path activity. and start writing questions for your first, that'll be your first post. And then in your second discussion board post, you'll find content that supplements or that aligns to those questions and that is on that topic that you've chosen already. So for demonstration purposes, I think I'll use this environmental activism activity and jump into the templates that we'll be working with. And just to show you, each of your project folders should have a blank template that is already ready to go. And you might be saying, well, I can just make one myself. I don't really need a blank one. They're not really blank. They have lots of important information. Yeah, how are they different? They're very different, and they have lots of important structuring and not code, but essentially code behind them that formats them in a very particular way that you know, folks on my team, the course building team, really need to get it into the system in the proper way. So I'll show you what that looks like in 1 second. So you can go ahead, just download it as normal, and then open it up. And then ignore that for a second. I'm going to use, yeah, it's Paul is asking, it's a technical difference, not a content issue. Now, it's really the reason why we're requiring that you use this template in this format is really because of the technical necessity. Marina's used other versions of our content templates, and this is going to look very different, and it's going to make for a much more efficient development process for us. So if anyone's ever been familiar with a scary word called macros, it is essentially something that allows you to automate in our case, the population of different sections that we require for our learning experience and for the content that you're going to be producing. And so when you open it, you should see something like this. And Word often opens in a protected view if you have a more recent version. So if we enable editing, this kind of pretty scary security warning comes up. It says macros have been disabled. You need to enable that in order to use the macros that are required by our system and that we'll be using to develop the content and putting it into the adaptive platform. So enable that, it'll be okay. And then, we're good to go. More or less looks like a blank screen, and doesn't look any different than a regular Word doc. But the thing that you'll want to know, what makes it special and what makes it different, is this button over here. And hopefully you guys can see that. But it looks just like a bunch of check boxes or something like that. But if you click on that, this window pops up here. And this is where we essentially have all of the different sections organized in a particular way, or I guess that will be populated in a particular way for you as we're working through it. So if that sounded a little bit confusing, yeah, is that you, Jeremy?
Yeah, just a quick note that if you're a Mac user, that button is not going to look like that. And we are working to make sure that we have, an equivalent. But Becky, who's on the call right now, is working through, if we can't replicate that button, some instructions that will help you get to the same dialog box that you see here with all these different buttons. So, so we'll get there. Mac users, don't fret, but it will be a little bit different. That's all.
Yeah. So that was definitely the reason why I was asking Windows users versus Mac users. Definitely have that on your radar. If you at all have the option of using Windows, this will be a lot more relevant for you right now, this demonstration here. But there will be something similar, and the underlying principle of there being a set of buttons that will allow you to populate different parts of this document in the format and in the order that we're after is really going to be the same, but just what it looks like and where it is, how you access those buttons is going to be different. So yeah, definitely just bear with us. But yeah, we're going through and we have this window open and we're able to get started. So a way to think about this, we essentially have, it's a fairly standard order for how things get presented to students within a knowledge path activity, so an individual discrete learning activity. So when you first get started, you'll want to come to this section button. You'll refer to this button a lot, but you'll use that, you'll open it, and then the first thing you'll want to do is actually, hold on. Where did it go? That's it. Okay, a heading. You want to make sure that you have a heading, and that's going to be the name of your activity. So in my case, that'll be environmental activism. And so after that, we're going to need to come back to the section button, and then the first thing that students get presented with will be an introduction. And so we typically just really call that our introduction, but you'll see that we're putting it, just typing it out as it's shown here, and then we'll come back, and then the content. So the content that you guys will be finding and curating for our students is something called a learning section, and there could be any number of learning sections within an activity. As long as it falls within around 20 minutes of learning, that's okay. So we can have multiple learning sections, but it'll just be important to indicate that it's a learning section with this, by clicking this button and adding this section this way. Some of these other, if you have questions about examples or worked examples or interactive examples, these are a little bit more advanced concepts within an adaptive environment. So definitely reach out to your course builder if you have questions about what some of these might mean and how they might be useful in, for your work. But I'm just going to go through the main ones just fairly quickly here. So we've got a section on learning, and I've actually got a document that I'll use to kind of work our way through it here. So this thing that I'm showing here is not what we're going to be using, and this is not what you should submit. This is just really for demonstration purposes. This document over here is really what we're trying to produce. So you've got your introduction, keep it within, these should be short primers for the topic. So 200 to 250 words, I think, is what we recommend. And then you can move on to your learning section. And then I'm not going to put in all of this stuff here, but just a little bit of text underneath to give you the idea. And then the name of it was Origins of American Mental Activism. Okay. I guess it would be helpful because images are going to be a big part of the learning experience as well. So you can go ahead and add an image here, and then you'll need to make sure that you put it, so I'll show you how we add it. We can come over here.
Hey, Chris, one other quick thing. So just so everybody's feeling better here, Chris is giving you the high-level overview. We also have training documents that we can share that have, a recording of all this that Michael put together. So we've got some really good support. So don't feel like this is going to be the one and only time you hear this stuff.
Definitely, yeah, yeah. That is definitely the case. So we've got our source here. Fill it out that way, and then you would want to make sure that you're definitely adding our alternative text. And then just to show you quickly, you would want to, after you finish out your learning section, the other major component that is required is adding a question section. So we'll go ahead and do that and just call that questions. And then to actually add the questions, you'll come down to this area, this window here, click on question, and then you could add, there are a number of different types of questions, and we cover this in the training, the first module of the training, a little bit more on what these question types mean. Some of them are more straightforward than others. But in this case of this walkthrough here, you can click on whichever one you want to add, and then sometimes you'll have another prompt like this that'll ask you to require how many options are there you're going to have in this question. And then just to show you, take it from over here, scroll all the way down. This is a bigger activity than what it's going to wind up looking like for our purposes walking through this training, but that's okay. And then you want to take care of some of that formatting there. And then include your answer choices. You'll include the answer choices over here. I'm not sure why that's coming up, why it's coming up bold, but you can just get rid of that in your window there. And you'll want to make sure, so option is the actual answer choice, and then status is whether or not it's correct. And you'll want to make sure that you're using the right word, the right words, either incorrect or correct there. And if you have more questions, definitely refer back to questions about questions, right? You'll definitely want to refer back to you know, this recording. We have other deeper dive into the training, a walkthrough like this, and definitely reach out to your course builder, who will be able to help you understand a little bit more of what's going on and how we really expect these to look, and how they're going to end up being before we ingest them. And I think we'll have some samples as time goes on, and there might be one that we can share with you coming out of this call. But over time, we'll continue to have more, and definitely have more conversations with your course builder. So yeah, but I think for now that'll be enough. You'll finish out by adding, after your question section, a summary. And again, that's straightforward synopsis of everything that was covered in the learning sections. And again, it's short, so around 200 or 250 words. And then, so we'll close this out, and then I'll try and come back. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. So yeah, as I'm clicking through, I want to open it up. I know that there is a ton of information, and a lot of it is probably, a lot of people are going to have questions about some of the technical aspects. So definitely feel free to ask. I think if there are really a lot of nitty-gritty technical questions, we could definitely shift that offline and try and make sure that everyone has access to the deeper dive walkthrough of everything that has to do with how to work with this template. So so yeah, but if there are any questions so far about some of the concepts that we've talked about that are relevant to this role, I think yeah, I've kind of plowed through a lot, so I know that there might be some stuff that's going to be a little bit fuzzy. So definitely yeah, chance to talk.
There are a couple of questions here in the discussion in the chat that we can hit. So Maria was asking about, are we creating only the questions for discussion one, or the learning content as well? So the first thing that I would say really quickly is most curating SMEs are actually not writing the discussion questions. Those happen within our Canvas. It's our learning management system. So every week, a student will have, in a knowledge path course, will have a knowledge path assignment, a discussion, and then a summative assignment in that module. So what we're working on these projects is just the KP assignment, and what that's comprised of is the content. So, if you want to think in terms of, a more traditional course, it would be kind of like your textbook in that it is the primary mechanism to deliver content. But then layered on top of that are the questions that you will be writing or curating that assess how well the student knows that piece of the learning. So I do want to say that this is not, though, a textbook. It really isn't. It's meant to be the pieces of the learning that are the most basic, that are going to get students close enough to understanding the material so that they can engage really well in the discussions and the assignments. So that's what we're doing on these projects. And then
just to build on that, or maybe to pivot from it, I think Maria.
Yep, I see the clarification.
Yeah. So essentially, for our discussion post 1, I'm going to be asking, or the training course is going to be asking you to just write the questions. So I walked you through some of essentially what it's going to look like when it's finished. But when you're completing this assignment, you'll want to make sure that you understand how to add the questions and just submit that. In the second module, we'll complete the template by adding those different sections. But the reason why we're asking you to do just the questions in that out of order fashion is because, again, going back to that backwards design model. So we're starting with the questions, and then and then we're asking you to go out and find content or create your own content, and then that's in line with those questions, and that'll make up the adaptive learning experience. Other questions?
I see a question here from Maria about fill-in questions. So the fill-in questions are going to be like fill in the blank. The multiple choice question that Chris showed you a couple of minutes back, you can have multiple correct answers on that, and that becomes basically like a multiple answer. So the student can click on as many different options as she would need to achieve the correct answer. So that is a capability, even though it's called multiple choice. It's multiple choice or multiple answer. So Maria, I hope that answers that question.
Yeah, and it looks like Paul has a general concern or question about what we're asking for here. So I'll take a stab at this, and then anyone else can feel free to, anyone on the course building team can feel free to jump in. But we're asking our subject matter experts, folks like you, to come in, and I can pull up the map, but if you just remember that map that I had brought up, you'll be given for the course that you were hired to work on, you'll be given a map that looks similar to that. And the idea is that we want to develop questions and content to gauge student mastery of the concepts that are in that map, that are part of that adaptive learning experience. And to just reiterate, the way we do that is by asking folks like you to write questions that are tied to the concept, and then you come in and you either we encourage folks to really rely heavily on open educational resources, and we talk about that in the training, or you could create your own materials as well in video or text format. But the idea is that find content, create it, that is going to help students answer those questions, and then that ensures us that that learning experience is tied to learning objectives and course competencies. So by working at this smaller, more granular level, we actually have the ability to align it back up, just because of the way that the process has been up to this point, and how you and where you come along is sort of at that last stage to get the questions and the content ready. So hopefully we can definitely talk a little bit more about that, and if there are still some questions, we can hash that out. But if there are other questions, we can go through that a little bit. Otherwise, I can continue on. I'm not sure if anything else popped up in the
Hi, Chris.
in the chat. Yeah.
Hi, Chris. It's Paula. I'm just trying to understand. You had stated you will be writing questions and content. So are those two separate things, or are they? I'm trying to understand what you mean by content.
Chris, I'm going to pull up a Knowledge Path assignment right here to just show what this looks like, and I think that'll answer some of these questions here. Okay, so I'm not sure which screen we've got sharing here. Let's see here. Are you guys seeing these bubbles? No?
Yeah.
Yes, yes, okay.
Yes.
So we'll go into Aristotle's triangle. So I'm going to view this. So this is our introduction translated into the system. You can see it's primarily text with some web links. We've got images. That is the content. Here, though, we've embedded an image that you can click on and it'll bring you to another website. So that is another form of content. Again, images. I know we've got at some point, and here are the practice questions. I'm forgetting which activity it's in, but we do have examples where there's audio clips that are included and YouTube videos and things of that nature. Or you can also record yourself, talking about a concept if you wanted to do that. So there are lots of different ways to define content, and it's going to be a little bit different depending on your subject matter area. And as well, we encourage you to create multiple alternatives, or at least one alternative for each concept, so that if a student is struggling, perhaps it's the text-heavy stuff, we can provide her with an equivalent video. So they're
Jeremy, could you jump to get to the question section? So
sure.
How do we know whether a student is struggling? That's essentially she'll go through and she'll interact with all of that learning material that Jeremy just went through, and then she comes to, this is essentially a short quiz that is based off of questions that subject matter experts like you will write, and we're using her responses in essence to gauge how well she's understanding what she just went through. So yeah, feel free to take that quiz, Jeremy.
All right. Yay, I'm correct. So yeah, in a multiple answer, you would be able to click multiple of those. And here's one where we're just going to, I think this is the grouping one, if I'm not mistaken. No, it's not grouping. It's
matching.
Yeah. Oh no, I got it wrong. All right, so in some cases you can see that we've built this into the solution. That was part of the template that Chris was showing you. There's a column there for feedback, so the student can see like why she's getting it wrong. So we encourage you to fill that out. But this is that's basically how this works. So the questions happen. So I'm going to keep going here. I'm not really reading these. And then finally, we get to the summary. So this is the last piece that you'd write. And at the end, the students end up getting a knowledge state, which is how well they really understand that particular concept. So that these green circles with stars mean that they're rock stars and they've learned everything really well. So that's the basic idea. Anything else you wanted me to show there, Chris?
No, I think that's great. What you've shown so far. If you want to see more examples to just get a better sense of what where concept meets reality in terms of what we're producing and presenting to our students, there are a number of training assignments, KP assignments, knowledge path assignments in the training course. So after this call, and as we go through the training, feel free to go into them. They're in a few different subject areas, and you should be able to go through and get a sense for what things start to look like. And that might start to tie in a little bit back to how we get to that final point based off of the template that we're working with here.
Paula, was your question about is content separate from questions? Do you feel like that was answered? And then Cecilia, CC, is it best to submit our first assignment and you will guide us from there? Chris, do you want to handle that one?
Where is it? What was it?
So the question is it best to submit our first assignment and you will guide us from there to ensure you get what you need?
Absolutely, and I think that that we'll be providing feedback for each thing that gets each discussion. The quizzes are just more formative, but if you have questions about the quiz, definitely. But the discussion posts and then the final assignment, that's definitely an opportunity for me to give you all of you, feedback in terms of how things are lining up, and the rubrics that are in there should also give you a sense for what we're trying to make sure is included in there in the templates that you're producing. So, and I guess this whole experience here of this is new and kind of funky and lots of questions is that's kind of what this training is for. And I think that even when you all move on to your projects, working with your course builder and collaborating and all of that good stuff, you'll have opportunities to submit work early, and we highly encourage that you do work out things, deadlines and ideas to submit content and to submit a template, for example, early to your course builder and to your program director, in order to make sure that you're on the right track, and you'll get some feedback, and feedback is really important for something that's going to be new to a lot of folks, and it's new to everyone because this is what it is on the cutting edge.
Yeah, I think that covers all of the questions. Oh, Paula asked, is there a course shell we might view? So there are definitely course shells. We have master, we call them master online, and they get rolled into every section that's being taught by different faculty members here at the American Women's College. So that's kind of like our, the gold standard for how our course gets designed. If you were interested in seeing what that looks like to, get a sense of what the assignments and discussions are, that's something that you could definitely talk to your program director, because they oversee the master shells, and they can either add you or they can talk to the course building team, and we can get you access. It's just the request has to be vetted by the program director, so that's who you would reach out to first. But we can definitely get you that. The syllabus is also, as Marina pointed out, we ask that the program director add the syllabus into your project folder, so you can use that also to kind of get a sense of how the course works for the project that you're working on. And I'm not seeing other questions. There was one other thing that I wanted to share, Chris, if I can grab the mic for a couple of minutes. I've gotten a couple of requests already for access to view the template folder. And the reason why you're not getting access immediately is because we protect all of that content that we've generated behind BayPath credentials. So you need to be logged into your BayPath account to access it. So for example here, I've opened up my browser. I'm at my browser homepage, which is Google. I can see if I'm using Google Chrome that I'm logged in, and I'm logged in right now as J.E. Anderson at baypath.edu. So anytime I go to view one of those web links that's shared in the training or via email by the facilitator or anything like that, I'm going to be able to view that. However, a number of you are logged in with other accounts. So for example, here I've got another secondary account, my personal Gmail account. If you're logged in with that, you're not going to be able to view the materials because that's not the credential that's necessary. So what I've been suggesting to a couple of you who have written in so far, you can either log in with your BayPath account and log out of your personal account, or there's another option where you can open up a incognito browser window, and all I did, if I'm in Google Chrome, I just hit Control Shift and N. If you're in Firefox, it's Control Shift and P, and I don't know what it is in Edge or Safari if you're a Mac user. But the point here is that you can get to this link, and I'm going to go to this Oh, I'm going to cancel that. So this is the folder that I want to get to. So over here in my incognito window, it's going to ask me to log in. So this is when I would just enter in my BayPath account. Yes. And it'll ask me all these different logins. But then once I've logged in with my BayPath account, I get access. So there are two ways. Like I said, either you go to that incognito window or you log in with your BayPath account. But that is that's how you would get to those materials. So are there any questions about that? If there are, we can try to clear them up here. Otherwise, your course builder can definitely help with that.
Hi, it's Paula again. There was a question from Maria about textbook access. Will we have access to our textbooks?
Yeah, I think, oh, go ahead. Or did you want me to?
I was just going to say it's going to depend on what kind of project it is.
Yeah, so in essence, I mentioned the word or the acronym OER, Open Educational Resources, and in essence, a lot of the course material that you'll be working from is going to be OER content, and it might be just one big ebook or EPUB, or it might be something different. We work with a company called EdMap that does a lot of upfront curation work for us, and they provide lots of different resources in a different format than just your standard EPUB or eText. And there's actually a module within the training that talks a little bit about that, or not a module, but a content page that talks about different content styles. But the most direct way to find out is to explore your project folder and see if something is there already. If you're not seeing anything that makes sense or looks like here's the one be all end all, EPUB, definitely reach out to your program director and your course builder if you think that there's if you have questions about accessing parts of the folder. But it's going to look a little bit different for each project depending on what that starting place is. And I guess something to kind of keep in mind, and somewhere that I wanted to make sure we touched on going forward, we're planning, we have built into our workflows of how this training goes and how just the whole development process goes for you to be meeting regularly with your project teams. And your project team is going to include your fellow SMEs and your course builder and your program director. And so you have, essentially, we like to call them kickoffs, and that's really where everyone gets together and we really ask questions, set expectations, define things, but also ask questions exactly like what we're asking here. And so definitely keep an eye out for those. I think in the training it mentions we're going to be having them this week, and I think just with the holiday that's going to be a little bit tough. But after we get back from holiday break, definitely keep an eye out for messages about scheduling that kickoff. Or if you feel like you have questions, definitely reach out to your program director about scheduling a call like that if you're not getting one sent to you early enough. And I feel like we're cutting it kind of close on time. But and I think we have a number of questions. We had a number of questions from folks. But I wanted to. Marina's been really active in the chat, and I really appreciate that, Marina, fielding some questions and offering your advice. I wanted to open it up to our other course builders and Diane as well. Anyone else who's worked on these projects and who works at TAWC to share just a quick maybe piece of advice or something very important, either that was covered on this webinar or something that wasn't, that you want to share. Something important that folks should keep in mind or emphasize going forward.
Hi, Chris, it's Diane. So hopefully you can hear me. I think the one thing, I think I'm finally coming in. Can you hear me? This is Diane.
Yeah, you're a little bit like muffled or a little bit low, but I can hear you a little
All right,
bit.
how about now? Can you hear me now?
Much better.
Excellent. All right. So I did see one question that I kind of wanted to come back with, and I think it was Paula that had said it, and it was knowledge path equals ungraded, and that's not true. That actually is a graded assignment for the students, and I think that kind of plays into what my one bit of information is in relation to these questions. Be aware that this is a graded assignment for the students. Yes, it's in the lower level of the Bloom's taxonomy, you know, the defined list, etc. But those are really important concepts, and be sure that what the questions that you're writing are going to be covering the concept, not to the book, but that concept. So I think that that would be the thing that I would say is just so important, that the way Knowledge Path works, to be able to move students past material that they may know, we need to make sure that they truly do know that concept by virtue of the questions that you are writing.
That's great. That's a really great tidbit. Not a tidbit, but really valuable information. Yeah. Thanks for reiterating that. Anyone else before we jump off? Anyone else on the team?
I mean, I guess the only thing that I would add, this is Michael. The only thing that I would add is that don't be shy to, like was mentioned in the chat window, to send us your first pass when using these templates, because they really are finicky beasts. And so if it might save a lot of time in the long run if you send your very first finished template to your course builder and just, we're always on the internet, and say, hey, does this look all right in terms of formatting, in terms of headings, in terms of where I should put the parts, and are my questions clear? And we'll be more than happy to give that a run through. So just feel free to contact us and to use us. Well, again, I guess I can't speak for all the course builders, but you can certainly use me if I'm your course builder to kind of help familiarize you with these templates, because that's one potential complication that folks who have gone through this before have run into, is just the really nitpicky formatting on those templates, just to get us the content to put into the adaptive platform. So that's all I would add. We are here for you. We may doze, but we never close.
This is Becky, and I would just kind of second that, is that there aren't questions that are too small while you're learning this. It's a lot better for you to reach out to us than stay frustrated, so please do not hesitate to contact with any questions that you have.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you guys for sharing. I don't know if Jeremy's still there, if he had anything super short, because I know we're at time, or just a little bit over.
Just good luck and Godspeed.
That's that sounds really good, and I think I think that's a good place to end things for now. Folks in the training, definitely feel free to reach out to me as the facilitator with any questions that you might have, and we'll be able to get you some feedback and get you some answers. But yeah, best of luck in the training, and we'll definitely be in touch soon.